Many CELPIP candidates struggle with part 1 of the reading test. The problem isn't their English. The problem is that they don't use the right strategies for finding the correct answers fast. High-scoring candidates take a completely different approach. They use effective reading strategies to find the answers quickly. This way, they manage to answer the questions correctly without running out of time. Strategic preparation makes all the difference. This is the approach candidates use inside our CELPIP packages. When they focus on strategic preparation rather than simply studying harder, their scores can transform dramatically. In this video, you'll learn how to approach CELPIP Reading Part 1 like a high-scoring candidate. I'll give you 9 powerful tips that can help you handle CELPIP Reading Part 1 with more confidence and accuracy. If you're tired of scoring low and running out of time, keep watching. This might be exactly what you need. CELPIP Reading Part 1 is called Reading Correspondence, and it's the first part of the reading test you'll face. The word correspondence just means written communication. So in this part, you're reading emails between 2 people. You'll get 2 texts. The first is a longer email from one person to another about an everyday social or work situation. The second is a shorter response to that email with some blanks that you need to fill in. Both texts are conversational and friendly in tone. They use the kind of language you'd find between colleagues, neighbors, or acquaintances. You have 11 minutes to answer 11 questions, 6 about the first email and 5 about the response. That's roughly 1 minute per question, so you need to be focused and strategic right from the start. Now, let's get into 9 specific tips that can help you score high in Part 1. Tip number 1 is to look at the questions first. Don't read the whole email first, because this wastes a lot of time. If you start by reading the email, you don't know what to look for because you haven't read the questions yet. Here's how it works. Read the first question carefully, then identify the keywords in that question. Once you have your keywords, go into the email and scan for them. When you find the relevant section, read it carefully and choose your answer. Then move on to the next question and repeat the same process from the beginning. This approach keeps you focused on one task at a time. You're not trying to hold multiple questions in your head at once, and you're not reading sections of the email that aren't relevant to what's being asked. For example, take a look at this question. According to the email, Marcus suggested that the team meeting should take place. Here, Marcus and team meeting are your keywords. So what you need to do is scan the email for Marcus's name or any mention of a team meeting. Then go directly to that sentence and find your answer. You don't need to read the whole email to get there. Getting into this habit during practice can make a real difference on test day. It keeps you moving at a steady pace and reduces the chance of getting overwhelmed by the amount of text on screen. Tip number 2 is something that makes a big difference for a lot of candidates. You don't need to understand every single word in the email to answer the questions correctly. Many candidates slow themselves down by stopping every time they come across an unfamiliar word. They try to figure out exactly what it means before moving on. This costs you valuable time. The truth is, you can often answer a question correctly without fully understanding every part of the surrounding text. As long as you can identify the relevant section and understand the general meaning of the sentence, that's usually enough. If you do come across a word you don't recognize, try to figure out whether it has a positive or negative meaning based on the context. Also think about what part of speech it is. Is it a noun, a verb, or an adjective? Even that basic information can help you understand the sentence well enough to choose the right answer. For example, the email might say something like, "The whole experience was genuinely invigorating, and I'd recommend it to anyone." You might not know the word invigorating. However, the phrases genuinely and I'd recommend it to anyone tell you it's something positive. That's enough to answer a question about the writer's attitude toward the experience. The goal isn't perfect comprehension, it's finding the right answer. Keep moving. Use the context to handle unfamiliar words, and trust that you don't need to understand everything to do well. Tip number 3 is to always be clear on who is writing the email and what their main purpose is. This sounds obvious, but it's a detail that many candidates overlook, and it can directly affect how you answer certain questions. Some questions in part 1 will ask about the writer's attitude, the tone of the email, or the writer's main reason for writing. If you're not sure who the writer is and what they want, these questions become much harder to answer. Make sure you identify the writer and the recipient. Then ask yourself what the writer is trying to accomplish. Are they making a request, sharing news, offering an opinion? The purpose is often stated in the opening paragraph, but not always. Sometimes you need to read a bit further to understand it fully. For example, an email might begin with some friendly small talk before the writer gets to the real point in the second paragraph. If you stop reading too early, you might miss the actual purpose of the email. Knowing the writer's purpose helps you interpret the meaning of the email more accurately, which is especially important for inference questions. By the way, if you want this channel to keep going, write yes in the comments, click like and subscribe. We only make videos that you actually want to watch. Tip number 4 is to recognize paraphrasing. Just like in other parts of the reading test, the questions in part 1 will rarely use the exact wording from the email. The meaning will be the same, but the words will be different. For example, the email might say, "I was really disappointed to hear that the event got cancelled." A question might ask what the writer's reaction was to the cancellation, and the correct answer might say, "The writer expressed feeling let down." The meaning is the same, but none of the exact words match. This is where many candidates go wrong. They scan for a phrase that matches the question exactly, don't find it, and either choose the wrong answer or waste time looking. If you understand that paraphrasing is happening, you'll be looking for the meaning rather than the exact words. Common paraphrasing techniques include replacing a word with a synonym, restructuring the sentence, or describing a specific detail in more general terms. Let's move on to tip number 5, which is about tone. Tone refers to the attitude or feeling that comes through in the way someone writes. In part 1, the emails are generally conversational and friendly, but within that range, there is still a lot of variation. For example, an email could be enthusiastic and excited, gently apologetic, or slightly frustrated. These differences in tone often show up directly in the questions. For instance, a question might ask, "The tone of the email can best be described as." A question might also ask what the writer's attitude is toward a particular person or situation. To identify tone, pay attention to the specific words the writer chooses, not just the general topic. Phrases like, "I was absolutely thrilled," or "I must say I was a little concerned," give you strong signals about how the writer is feeling. Tone is usually not stated directly. You have to read between the lines and pick up on those signals. Tip number 6 is about the second text in part 1, the short response email with blanks. This part works a little differently from the first 6 questions, and it's important to understand how to approach it. The response is written by the person who received the first email. It's a reply, so its content and tone are directly connected to the original message. Some blanks will test your understanding of vocabulary or grammar in context. Others will test whether you understood the meaning and situation from the first email. Here's how to approach it. Take a look at the first blank and the sentence around it. Think about what kind of word or phrase fits both the meaning and the grammar of the sentence. Here is an example. I completely understand your concerns, and I think the best way forward would be the correct answer needs to fit the grammar, and it also needs to make sense given what the original email was about. If you take a closer look at this sentence, you can see that the answer should be a verb phrase. Then look for keywords in this sentence and scan for them in the first email. Once you have found the keyword, look for the information you need in this part of the text. Always consider the first email and the response together when answering these questions. The two texts are designed to connect, and understanding that connection is key to getting the answers right. Tip number 7 is about inference questions. Many CELPIP candidates find these questions challenging. Inference questions are questions where the answer isn't directly written in the text. You have to use the information that's there to draw a logical conclusion. Here are a couple of examples of what inference questions look like. The email suggests that the writer and the recipient have known each other for. Based on the email, it can be concluded that the writer is. For these questions, you need to think carefully about what the text implies rather than what it says outright. A common mistake is to choose an answer based on what seems reasonable from personal experience or general knowledge. But the correct answer must be supported by something in the text, even if it's not stated directly. Start by identifying the relevant part of the email, read it closely, and then ask yourself, given everything I've just read, what is the most logical conclusion? If you can point to a specific detail in the email that supports your answer, you're probably on the right track. If your answer depends on assumptions that aren't grounded in the text, it's likely wrong. Tip number 8 is about a trap many CELPIP candidates fall into: wrong answer choices that sound very reasonable. In part 1, the incorrect options are designed to look appealing. They might mention a name or topic from the email. They might also describe something that's generally true, but not actually supported by the text. This is especially common with inference and general meaning questions. The question asks what the writer implies, and one of the answer choices says something that feels like a natural assumption. But when you go back to the text, it isn't actually there. The best way to protect yourself from this is to always go back and verify your answer in the text before you commit to it. Ask yourself, can I find a specific sentence or phrase in the email that supports this answer? If yes, great. If no, be careful. It might be one of those attractive wrong answers. This also applies when two answer choices seem very similar. Read both closely and identify the exact difference between them. Usually, one of them adds a small detail that goes beyond what the text actually says. That's the wrong one. The final tip is about time management. You have 11 minutes to answer 11 questions in part 1. That works out to about 1 minute per question, which is not a lot of time. This means you need to stay focused and keep moving through the section. If you don't know the answer to a question, don't keep staring at it. Use the process of elimination to remove answers that clearly don't fit. Then make your best choice from what's left and move on. Remember, there's no penalty for wrong answers, so you should never leave a question unanswered. Keep an eye on the timer as you work through part 1, so you always know where you stand. Those are 9 essential tips for scoring high in CELPIP Reading Part 1. If you're serious about achieving the CELPIP score you need, check out our CELPIP packages using the link below. We'll guide you step by step on how to score high, so you'll feel confident on test day. I hope you liked this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you're notified when the next video comes out. Also, share this video with your friends so they can improve their CELPIP score too. See you in the next video!